All right, so now we are welcoming on Pasi Mustonen to the Coaches Road Conference. Pasi, thank you so much for joining the conference and for sharing a little bit about your journey and your road. Just to start with here, can you just describe your kind of coaching career? If it took the shape of a river, what kind of shape would that take, and what would the kind of twists and turns and rapids and rough parts look like?
Well, I'd rather describe my river as a row of mountains almost. Feel more like that myself. Anyway, I quit playing. I'm born 1960. I quit playing at the age of 25. Surprisingly to myself also. I didn't actually plan it, but all of a sudden I was asked to coach 8 juniors as an assistant coach in Jyväskylä in Jyp. And I was still planning to play. Jyp had got up to the highest league in Finland a year before, and I knew well the coach, and I had been playing that one. Jyp is my mother club, so to say. So I started playing in Jyväskylä. I made a spontaneous decision. I didn't really know if I wanted to coach. But at the same time, I sort of calculated if I stay, I was in the middle of my studies at the Faculty of Physical Education at the University of Jyväskylä. I had to finish those studies. I felt I have to finish those studies. And I had played in Sweden the year before, and I made a decision, I'll finish my studies, stay in Jyväskylä. I would have got a spot, I believe, in the elite team in Finnish league, but if I had got playing time was another question. Bearing in mind who I had as a coach, that it's hard to change the picture of a player you've had in years. So I made a decision, okay, I'll try it. I jumped on the coaching pathway as an assistant coach to Ari Piispanen, who has worked basically all his life in the Finnish Ice Hockey Federation, after having been the chief of coaching in Jyp Jyväskylä. Simultaneously, he was coaching 8 juniors. He was a chief of coaching. And he asked me to join him. And I jumped in, and I want to mention, before I forget, the first thing I learned pretty quickly, Ari was I admired him as a father in his family also, because we knew privately, our families, me and Johanna, my wife, we knew each other's privately, and we could visit them in their house. They had small kids, etc. And Ari was extremely clear in if there was a problem, so he took it up right away. That's something I learned right away as a coach. We Finns talk about bringing the cat on the table, bringing on the problem and discussing it. Right away you have a problem, you don't let it sort of get bigger. You intervene, go into here we have a problem, let's discuss. And that's something I saw him do at home also. And that was important for me. So I think that is something that I learned right away. And I've been able to utilize if I know there's a problem. So I've never been afraid of bringing it up. Hey, we have a problem. Let's do something with the problem. So in that respect, Ari was extremely important for me. I see this first part of starting coaching, 85, and the whole period. I moved to, all of a sudden I got a call from, after having coached 1 year, I got a call at the age of 26. And Ilves from Tampere was the first team to have a chief of coaching on a full-time basis, who was mainly who would focus on developing the coaching in the junior teams. And that was unique in Finland. And why they wanted to have a young guy, they wanted to have somebody with university education. And that's why I got the unique chance. So I jumped in on that task. at the age of 26 and became the chief of coaching for all the junior teams in Ilves at Tampere. 86, 88, I worked there. 88, I was dreaming. I remember I was at my shop. There should be a turn in my river. There is a slight turn also. I was dreaming of working. I thought so. It may have been a Tuesday morning. I thought so. I went to shop and thought it might be interesting when you get. I've always been sort of. I want to see different cultures, different countries. So I dreamt of. I had my daydream. It would be nice to work abroad. All of a sudden, Esa Sireni is the guy. He was working in Rapperswil in Switzerland as a head coach for the A team, the best team, the representative team. Esa called me and said, "Are you interested?" They want to have they absolutely wanted to have a Finn as a chief of coaching. I said, "Oh wow." The next morning, I got this call. I dreamt of that. It was a daydream, maybe sometimes in the future. And now I'm in Switzerland all of a sudden. I could hardly German. So I chopped on the ball. You know, at your age, I wasn't afraid of anything. I just jumped in on the boat. All of a sudden, we find ourselves in Finland. I got Sonia was born 88. She was 5 weeks old when we left the left Helsinki. I remember grandpa's all four crying because we left, and Sonia was in this baby chair, sitting 5 weeks old, and we just over to Switzerland. Let's see what happens, and that's how it started. 3 years in Switzerland. All that 6 years period, I would call apprenticeship. I didn't even know if I want to become a coach. But starting coaching in Switzerland, 88, I was chief of coaching and simultaneously head coach for their A junior team. The Swiss wanted to utilize the foreigners to 110%. So I had sort of 2 jobs. And those years made me realize this is interesting. I want to coach. I was wondering a lot, talking to myself, having those intern chats with myself. Why do we have to win all the time? What's the point? Jesus, win and win and win. And people whispering to you, no, you have to win now. And you have to win tonight. And so what if we lose? What happens then? Some of the teams lose. Are you going to kill yourself as a club manager if we lose? So I was sort of contemplating a lot. And then I realized I started developing my own philosophy gradually. Okay, then I lost my work permit in Switzerland. I had already a 2 years contract. The third year I was coaching an A team on the third highest level, close to Zurich. So I changed club in Switzerland. We had a wonderful first year in that team, Dübendorf, and they signed a 2-year contract with me. But I got the call from the officials in canton, in that canton. Switzerland's divided in 24 different cantons with different legislation. So they just told me, get away from here, you won't get a work permit. So I said, I just moved here. I've got everything I own, I brought over to Switzerland the third year when I moved, when I got the new job. And all of a sudden we have to just, they didn't care. I had 6 days to leave. I had a kid, I had a wife, I had no job. 6 days to leave. Everything I own, I had transported to Switzerland. What the hell do you do? So we got 14 days more through the president of the club, the owner of the club. He had political influence. So we got 2.5 weeks more time to contemplate what to do. I ended up in Oulu, in Kärpät, as a head coach. And the guy who helped me was Hannu Aravirta, a famous Finnish coach. I had already worked with him as an assistant coach for the U16 national team while being chief of coaching at Ilves. So I knew Hannu. Hannu was originally from Kärpät, And Kärpät had ended up in a situation where the coach got kicked, new guy came in, they didn't want to keep working with him, and I ended up late May, the 25th of, the late March, 25th of March, ended up in a situation I have no job because I don't get the work. I had the job. I had a contract, 2 years contract, 4th and 5th year in Switzerland, but I couldn't work. I didn't get the work permit in that specific country. So Hannu recommended me to Kärpät. So what we did, we packed our things, left basically everything we owned, packed our clothes, drove our car to Ängelholm, where Rögle is, Ängelholm. In Sweden, I had one of my best mates, my best mate, even now, he was playing pro in Rögle at that time. We knew the family, we were the best friends. So we drove over there. I flew from Ängelholm to Kärpät, signed a contract, flew back, and we started thinking, what the hell, how do we get our things from Switzerland? We couldn't go back to Switzerland for 1 month, because otherwise I would never get a work permit. There was a sort of a quarantine time. So we moved over to Kärpät. Kärpät was at that time in Mestis, in the next highest league, a top team. That period, we had a wonderful first year. It ended up, that's why my mind, there was a crush. I dived into a valley. I got sacked. I got fired at the end of the second season, mostly due to my values. I could write a book of that story. I may do it sometimes, but I didn't let. The thing is, there was a millionaire who built up a rink in Oulu region. Kärpät was close to the bankruptcy. He saved through his money. So he saved the club, but the key person was his son, who played in youth 16, 17, 18 national teams. But he wasn't not ready enough for the A team, because I didn't let him play because he wasn't not ready. So the guy, millionaire, started chasing me, and we ended up in a situation I finally got sacked the second season. And there you are at the age of hardly 30, you get sacked, and there's a crisis. What happens now? And that's why my river takes a sharp turn. So what happens then? Okay, are you gonna keep? I had another option. I started looking for jobs. And I was so close not coaching. But bearing in mind that experience, that was the best thing that could happen to me. So I got sacked. What happened? I had to take a look in the mirror also. Most of all, I could understand the reasons why, accept things can happen. And I don't know why, but I never lost my trust in myself. Naturally, I had my muse, my mentor, the most important person influencing my whole life, not only my professional life, my life in general, who's made me a whole person, and that is my wife Johanna. And it's a pity at that time when communication wasn't this easy. So you had to phone a colleague, and working abroad. I mean, phoning a colleague that would cost me a lot of money to call from Switzerland. You didn't have those networks that time if you worked abroad. No, my network was my closest human being, my wife, and has always been. I still discuss before if I have a difficult decision, she's the one that reflects on those, contemplates. I'll listen to her. She's a wonderful lady, and she's been living over 3 decades, the same life, and she's socially extremely skillful. So I sort of use her when I feel I'm not competent enough myself. So she's been my mentor. I have other mentors nowadays, or colleagues to talk with, but I would have had. I hope I would have had a colleague, not only my wife, but even some mentor at that time. I didn't have. Now I'm looking up for those people. I'm contemplating my ringing and discussing with other people also. So there, those years when I got a job 250 kilometers north of Polo Circle in Kiruna, 93, 93, 7, and moved over to Sweden, worked there as a coach to 2003. Those I learned to coach under those years. That was learning to coach phase for me. I was still, I sort of, I didn't have the year. How should I put it? This I wasn't humble enough to realize that I don't think I could really listen to other people. I thought I could things best. There were still those years. That fact sort of sank into my soul a bit later. No, but as far as hockey and technical, tactical, those things, coaching, that part is concerned, so that was the learning to coach phase. And I think I picked up quite many things. 2003, what happened then? I was coached the last two seasons, 2001 to 2003 in Skellefteå. The top team, not yet at the highest league, also in Mestis, but a top team, aspiring all the time to go up to the SHL. But a small city, 36,000 inhabitants, but there's only one thing there. There's only hockey. A long traditions. They won the title in 1978. That city is only hockey, nothing else. Even today, that's hockey. Skellefteå IK is hockey. They played 7 SHL finals in a row after starting 2010 or 11. So that's a hockey town. And being head coach there, you are in the focus all the time. That's like being head coach in whatever top team in Europe. You're always in focus in media all the time. So you're really pressed. You really learn things there. We did 2 good years. I couldn't manage people due to my values and due to my stubbornness and due to I wasn't mature enough. I had same thoughts I have now. They haven't changed my values, not a bit. But today I can express them in another way. So everything exploded. That's the end of Skellefteå period. I became headmaster there in a high school, worked there 6.5 years as a headmaster. Last year, so I didn't coach at all. Yeah, I coached 1 year as an second assistant coach in women's floorball team on the highest level in Sweden. But 5 years after that, I didn't coach at all. So I worked as a headmaster. I got a job as a headmaster. I looked for a job as a physical education teacher. And they hired me as a headmaster at a new school, starting from 0 pupils or students. We grew up to almost 300 pupils, a high school, a new high school owned by private people. It's possible in Sweden. And I worked there as a headmaster for all those years. I got a leave of absence my last year, and my second last year at the school, and worked as a coach. I felt I have to work as a coach also. So I worked as a coach in 6 months' time in Haaparanda, close to Tornio, by the Swedish side. Asplöven is the team on third highest level. So I was a coach 2008, 2009 there. And then 2011, Kärpät called me. Harri Aho a former player of mine, father to Sebastian Aho, Carolina Hurricanes. Harry called me and said that they've hired Hannu Aroventa as head coach. And they had discussed the name of the assistant coach. They didn't go any further. Both of them, without knowing of each other, suggested the same name. It was me. So Kärpät in SM League 2011 to 2013, together with Hannu Araverta. That's a sharp turn in my river, or a new climb on my mountain. A period growing as a human being, I would call it. I became, hopefully the players experience me, but sort of I hope I started becoming an adult coach, or maybe a mentor in the best of cases. And that's the start in Kärpät, together with Hannu again. 2 seasons in Kärpät, Hannu was hired 2013-14 as a head coach in Pelicans in Lahti, and Hannu told the management that most probably it's the last season under his career, which turned out to be the last year also. And he had one prerequisite for taking the job. It was the assistant coach. He wanted me. So he called me, are you ready to move over to Lahti? And I made the decision. So that's how I ended up here. I ended up finally on degree program. Kari Salvolainen hired me here. He wanted to have a leave of absence for a year, and he was just hoping that I wouldn't get a second year in Pelicans because he didn't find anyone who had the formal competence to teach unemployed, being at the relative high level in the world of coaching. So you have to be unemployed to be able to replace someone, Kari in this case, for example, replace Kari who's taking a leave of absence from his job and coming back. So you get the support for the wages that way from the state. So Kari had been looking for someone so he could breathe out for a year or a season. And that's the way I ended up in Vierumäki as a teacher also. And simultaneously, I was of the women's national team. And that's where my development as a coach really was speeded up. So when the women came into picture, and together with my muse, my wife, the women they've taught me most. That's been the most wonderful period in my coaching career. That's where my river really started flowing. They taught me what this coaching is all about. It's about people. It's about listening to each other. You don't sit on the truth. Nobody does. But we have to listen to each other and take everyone into the discussion. Naturally, you guys know what we teach here. We have theoretical background. Me and Markus Arve are working together. It was easy for us. We knew the philosophy. We're going to do our own version of All Blacks. We built in the player leadership groups, and the women, they really ignited. They wanted to be there, participate in that. And that process is going on. But they teach me all the time, every day, new things. And you realize how complicated it's a human relationship job. Being coach is taking care of human relations. And it's tougher, it's more difficult in a female team, way more sophisticated, more subtle, more complicated. You have to learn new things, but you have to listen to them. And to manage them in some way, it's really a puzzle, but it's a wonderful challenge. And that is why I really recommend all the young coaches to spend a year or 2 or 3 with the female game and not be afraid of ending up in a box that no one can come back to the male side. On the contrary, you learn a lot of things. You learn a lot of communication. You learn a lot of human relations, how they function. You realize that it's the strength in the human relations that finally facilitates an eventual success or a good season. So there is no team that a strategy never wins titles, or a strategy never makes a good season. No. Forget it. A football team and media makes it. They play 4-2-4 or 13, 15, 16, or somebody calls it Christmas tree, their tactics. And then there's a pine tree and there's a 4-5-1 and so on. It's not the tactics. It's unified people. It's the feeling of being together. People who wanna follow together, they trust each other. They together decide to follow either a strategy A, B, C, D, or E. But they want to do it together. It's the people, human relationships that guarantee success if we manage to build them and create trust. That's the way it goes. It doesn't go the other way around. So all that we learn as young coaches and developmental programs, as far as the technical, tactical side are concerned, they are tools. They're just tools we use. We have to know the tools, naturally.
Thanks for very emotional 25 minutes, Pasi. I think, yeah.
Greg, I got something to add.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so what did I learn? What did hurt me under my career? I get really hurt if somebody tried to hurt my family or my kids. And it took place. So then I had hard times controlling it. That hurt me. Kids coming home and I hear that they had kids at the same school class. So it's the kids are talking, but actually their parents are talking through their kids to our kids. What I am like as a person. That, for example, or if the management started taking my family into discussion in the media, that has also taken place. I got mad. That hurt me. Actually, nothing else hurt me under my career. Somewhere on the road, there will always be I have ended up in so many controversial situations under my career that to get rid of the anxiety that those situations create. Now I'm in the middle of a chaos in media. I've been there last month. I will be there next month, all the time, where my mates call me and ask me, you're still the same guy I've known in 30 years, I suppose. You don't look like that in the paper. No, I don't. They sort of, they know me. My wife knows me. My kids knows me. You know me. I'm not, you think I'm a prick, so I'm a prick. You don't think I'm a prick. I'm not a prick. I'm the same guy I was in October last year. But to know it yourself, you have to have your values. And always when it comes to, you can avoid the anxiety, but you have to communicate your values. And sometimes you even have to do it in media if you work on a high level. I've done it. I've chosen it. I've told the journalist of my values. Some of them hate me and chase me. But I don't have any anxiety because I speak up. I do tell them, I don't like you lying and putting words in my mouth. I can't have your values. You don't get any interviews from me, personal interviews, because you lie and sell through the clicks. You sell your paper. And that's not my value. Then they tell me, we will kill you in media. So I said, I can't do anything with that. But I'm feeling okay because I speak up. The Swedes have a saying. They say finally you always have to bekänna färg, which means show your color, which means to tell your values, why you live, what's important in your life. And when you dare to do that, even though other coaches don't dare to do that, so you get rid of the anxiety. I know it. I've been there so many times. I'm now in the middle of the chaos, where they will be writing what a prick I am, that I do. I don't give the people a chance and everything possible. My job is not how would I put it? My job is not to protect my fame as a person or coach. My closest people know who I am. It's not my job. My job as a coach on this level is to protect the truth. So base all my decision on my and team's values and make a decision no matter how much it hurts, how it looks like. I can't tell most of the things influencing these things, they are under secrecy. They can't be revised in media. But I have to make those calls. I have to make those decisions. And I can fully understand that all of the people don't have the courage to do it either. But remember, there will always be, my final statement, there will always be moments under your coaching career where you have to take extremely difficult decisions the environment can't understand because they are not allowed to know all the details. But follow up your soul, follow up your values. Base those hard decisions on your values because that enables you to get rid of the anxiety caused otherwise. And now I've got about 60 days to go as a coach. I won't officially quit as a coach, but it is possible. I'm too old. I'm not too old here. I'm not too old here, not in my soul. I'm still burning for coaching, but it is possible. This is my last task, but I won't finish my coaching career officially. I'd like to coach, but hopefully I can leave a footprint, and that is base all your most difficult decisions on the values you have as a person. You can always be proud of yourself in the end, no matter how the games finally end, no matter how we end up in the Olympics. I know before we drove there, I made the right calls. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Pasi, and thanks for such a great story and such an in-depth answer for our reflection activity. We wish you the best of luck with the Olympics coming up and the rest of camp this week, and hopefully we are excited to see what the next chapter for Pasi Mustonen is after the Olympics. So thank you again.
Degree program.
Yeah.
Degree program, naturally. Thanks, guys.